Hello and welcome everyone to CMM, the creative map-making series which takes new and innovative ideas and builds command block contraptions to implement them into Minecraft. If you are a YouTuber who has done any time-lapse or showcase footage in the past, you have probably already heard of the Camera Studio mod. The Camera Studio mod was made for anyone who wanted to make videos in-game and have an in-depth control over the camera movement and orientation. This allows the player to create a path that he will automatically follow at precise speeds. However, the mod has one big flaw. It's a mod. And though mods are great, they require a significant amount of knowledge to set up and require updating before they can be used in later versions of the game. So, I did some thinking. What if you could have a single command which you can copy and paste into a command block, which in turn creates a command block system which would be a reasonable replacement for the Camera Studio mod? If it's a command block system, you'd be able to use it in any version of the game from version 1.8 onwards, and therefore you would never have to worry about updating the mod again. That and the fact that it'd be so easy to set up makes this system, in my opinion, a worthy opponent for the Camera Studio mod. So, let's get started with episode 1, Moving the Player. One of the dominant features of the Camera Studio mod is that the player can pick any 2 points in the Minecraft world and move smoothly between them at any speed he wishes. In order to make a good replacement for the Camera Studio mod, we must also find a way to smoothly move the player around the world automatically. To do this, we have 3 options. Option number 1, sequential teleportation. Option number 2, riding velocities. And option number 3, occupied spectator velocities. So let's get started with option number 1, sequential teleportation. What is sequential teleportation? Sequential teleportation is the act of teleporting the player through a sequence of points in order to create a smooth camera movement. As the distance teleported decreases, the path becomes smoother, just like how a 3-sided regular polygon is very jagged, but as you increase the number of sides with a fixed area, the polygon looks more and more like a circle. The downside of this system is to get a smooth camera movement, the player has to be teleported over lots of very small distances, which means overall the player moves extremely slowly. If the player gets teleported too fast, the footage will look jittery, so more often than not, the player will have to speed up the footage in the video editing stage. Of course, this is fine for most time lapses, but it wouldn't be so great for redstone showcases, as then the redstone contraptions would work faster than usual. What about option number 2, riding velocities? What is riding velocities? Riding velocities was the idea that one could sit on a horse, for example, and then the horse could be given a velocity with the entity data command. This would get rid of the jittery problem with sequential teleportation. However, this brings a whole host of new problems. The main problem with this movement system is that the player is in complete control of where the camera looks, which of course would mean the player would have to undergo more work than he did in the sequential teleportation method. What is worse is that you cannot force the player to look in any particular direction with the teleport commands. If you try, you will just force the player to get off the horse. So at this stage, riding velocities doesn't look any better than sequential teleportation. So let's look at the final option. Option number 3, occupied spectator velocities. This idea hit me when I was messing around with the hilarious mob rotations, and I just so happened to be in spectator mode when I clicked on the villager. I suddenly noticed that my camera was upside down and I was inside an entity that could be moved with velocities. So the final option is that the camera studio first sets the player to spectator mode. Then the player clicks on the entity, which we will call from now on the host. The host will then be moved around with velocities given with the entity data command, and wherever the host looks, the player will also look. During the simulation, the player won't have any control other than being able to leave the host, and upon leaving the host will be killed and the system reset. To make the camera look in certain directions, the host can be teleported around using yaw and pitch values. This method gives an extremely smooth camera movement, as you can see from the video. The camera movement is much smoother than the camera movement using sequential teleportation. However, this isn't all. You might have seen it already, as it's already played through a few times. But the holy grail of this technique is that when the host teleports, the player also moves smoothly. So this technique allows for smooth teleportation, which ultimately means we can use sequential teleportation method if we wanted to as well. This would give us the advantage of being able to pass through walls, like we would if we were in no-clip mode. So, it seems the occupied spectator velocities method is the best of all three options. But if we take two arbitrary points x and y, how do we calculate the correct velocity to get to y from x? Find out next time on CMM.